intimate conversations with wedding professionals as they share their stories, insights, and tips from inside the wedding industry. We'll chat about how to be authentic and that it's okay not to be perfect or run your business like someone else's Instagram. Let's dive into the privilege it is to serve our clients and discover the talented creatives that make up our community. When we share what we know and who we are, we better serve our couples as a wedding day team, as well as each other. Simply put, Be Fabbo. Now here's your host, BobbiBrinkman.
Happy Wedding Wednesday, podcast listeners. Thanks for being here today for episode 28. Today's episode is one of those episodes that is really special to me because I think we all have heroes and sheroes in the wedding industry, as I do the air quotes, rock stars that we have followed, those influencers that are out there telling us how to make our wedding businesses run more effective and more smoothly, as well as why we should follow them and do what they do. But I think that we, at least I know I do, respect a little bit more those in the background that are making bigger waves and walk the walk, talk the talk by using their voice in a manner that may not be as loud, but is making an impact directly on the wedding industry and making changes directly in the wedding industry, not just in our wedding businesses. When I sent the DM out to today's guest, I started off by saying, hey, I'm a little bitty podcaster. I host a small podcast, a wedding industry podcast. It's okay if you say no. I understand. I don't have a bazillion followers. So when she came back with, of course, I literally about fell off my chair, y'all. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, she said yes. So I'm thrilled that today we're going to chat about equality. We're going to chat about LGBTQ plus equality and inclusion in the wedding industry. And those of you who have attended a conference that I've been a speaker at or a not workshop or have just invited me to talk to your groups on LGBTQ plus and better serving your couples, you guys know that on the screen behind me or in a pass out, I always have Equally Wed logo, Equally Wed Pro logo, and I also have equallywed.com because I believe that they are the go-to source for inclusion in the wedding industry. And I pride myself in respecting all the work that they do quietly but effectively behind the scenes in the wedding industry. And I'm thrilled that more and more people are getting to know them. It's very important to me that I love this wedding community and I love being part of the LGBTQ plus community. So, quote, marrying those two together is something that I will do in education till my last breath. Because I, like our guests, believe that all stories should be told, all couples should be included, and that we need more representation of all of us so that we all can see ourselves in wedding pages, wedding blogs, wedding magazines, and it's a good representation. So I'm thrilled today to have as our guest Kirsten Ott Palladino, queer-owned feminist, LGBTQ plus wedding magazine since 2010. 2010, guys. This is before we had the hashtags and we had all the marriage equality and all the rallies around same-sex weddings. This was at a time when we were still being shunned away. In 2019, we are still shunned away by vendors, but this was even worse, and I used the word worse back then. So she has wrote a book, Equally Wed, The Ultimate Guide to Planning Your LGBTQ plus Wedding, and I'm thrilled that she is also, as part of the educator, Equally Wed Pro, the LGBTQ plus inclusion certification course. Tina will have a link to all these things in the show notes, but this course is for any wedding vendor, and I'm going to stress highly everybody that sends me DMs or everybody that sends me a note and says, how can you help me, or can you help me become more gay friendly? How do I let same-sex couples know I'm here for them and that I'm a friendly vendor? This is the course that you can take. I can help you and I can teach you, but here is a course that is an inclusive course. It dives in really, really deep to pronouns and just the directions that LGBTQ weddings are going and highs and lows. It gives you all the information in one course that you can take at your pace. And at the end of it, you guys, you get a certificate. Look, Mom, look what I did. And you get a badge. So this will help you dramatically let same-sex couples know in the LGBTQ plus community that you are a safe, friendly vendor. And that is the key. We in the community want to find vendors that are going to treat us with respect. You may not understand us, and we're going to do this together, and we're going to make changes, and we're going to make mistakes, but we're going to do it together. But we need to know that we are in safe hands with safe vendors that we can reach out to. And this course will give you all those tools that you need, along with you as your own person and you and your own policies. This will give you the other side of the things that will help you do all things right to be inclusive. So I'm thrilled that she sat down and chatted with me. So grab a tea, grab a coffee, grab a beer, whatever your choice is, and listen. I'm so thrilled that you're going to hear her voice, the voice behind Equally Wed, and the voice behind this magazine that is doing wonderful things. And I encourage all of you to continually, LGBT community as well as the wedding industry, to follow along on all the things that they're doing at equallywed.com. It's more than just weddings. It's more than just being engaged. It's full service and full circle of life in the LGBT community. And we sadly still have to talk about vendors who turn us away. So without much further ado, I am thrilled that you're going to be able to hear directly from Kirsten Ott Palladino. Please make her feel welcome. I'm so glad she's here. All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. As I said, we have Kirsten, and she is from Equally Wed. And you guys wanted to talk to somebody, a leader in the LGBTQ plus community, and thankfully she has some time to share with us today. Before we get started with all your questions, though, let's hear a little bit about how she got to where she is in being an LGBTQ plus educator. She's been doing this since 2010, but let's find out how she got here. So share with everybody how you got to this part, Miss Kirsten.
Hi, Bobby. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
So my background is in journalism, and I'm also part of the LGBTQ plus community. So I started working in magazines about 18 or 19 years ago, and I was doing everything. I worked at an art magazine. I worked as a food editor for a city publication in Atlanta, and I was writing travel and about business and profiles of celebrities. I was doing all of this when my girlfriend proposed to me in 2008. She flew me up to New York under the disguise of my 30th birthday celebration. And I was a little bit bossy because I had said, we'd been together for 4 years, and I had said, I really want to be engaged by the time I'm 30. And so she proposed the day before I turned 30.
Of course.
She got in. Yes. She got in under the wire and in Central Park. And we came home from Atlanta very excited. Back to Atlanta, where we live, but very excited about planning our wedding. And I don't know what was going on. Had been in a cloud. I started looking around for inspiration for our wedding and realized that there really wasn't a lot of people that looked like us who were getting married, not in the magazines or online. And it was really disappointing. And I didn't know how I had missed this, but I missed it big time until I needed it. And then I saw that it wasn't there. We started planning our wedding based on heterosexual wedding publications and books. And, I love Mindy Weiss, and I got her book, and we were, on the Knot and Martha Stewart weddings, but really weren't feeling validated, by, of who we were. And so we, as the time went on, we also started experiencing discrimination from wedding vendors in the area, not wanting to participate in our wedding or sending me religious quotes and, just really, in the Southern way, kind of bless your heart. They weren't going to say outright, screw you, but it was very much.
When it's bless your heart, all capitals, you pretty much know what that means.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we were, feeling pretty brokenhearted and misunderstood and misrepresented or not represented at all. Which was difficult because even, in our circles, we were experiencing some, I wouldn't say discrimination, just people just didn't understand, why we would be planning a wedding in a state that did not give us full marriage equality, or and the answer to that was we wanted to get married where our family and friends were. And it was part of our timeline. We wanted to get married before we have kids. I mean, people talk about traditional weddings as if LGBTQ people can't be in that traditional world, and we feel like we're a pretty traditional couple, and we wanted to have the wedding before we had the babies, and so it was important that we get married, even if the government or society wasn't going to say that it was allowed. We were going to do it anyway, and so that's what we did. And we got married in June 2009, and during the planning from 2008 to June 2009, we started, the gears were turning of what we didn't see out there. And me as a writer and editor, and my wife as a graphic designer and web developer, thought, hey, you know what? We could do something for our community that we didn't have. And so that's how Equally Wed was born. We decided to create an online wedding magazine with a wedding directory of LGBTQ plus inclusive wedding vendors who not only will tolerate us, but who will celebrate us.
Exactly. And I wanted to go back and ask, I've been a longtime fan, from the minute you guys started. I've been a fan as a member of the LGBTQ community myself. I think many of us were like, oh my gosh, we didn't think of this. Like any small business or any creative business, businesses are created out of a need. And that's exactly what you and Maria has done. I'm curious though, back in 2008 and back in 2009, when you're planning, of your circle of friends, how many of them felt like, we're never going to get married, or we're not going to get married till it's legal? And I know you had a little bit of questioning, but did you actually feel sometimes from our own community, why do you want to be mainstream? Why do you want to follow in that? Because like you said, us gay couples still go to college, graduate college, get a job, and the next step is to get married, have kids, buy a house, blah, blah, blah. So yes, that's tradition. But I was curious back in 2008 and 2009, especially down here in the Atlanta area, if you had others in our community that were like, I'm just bucking the system, we're not going to, conform to mainstream. Did you feel that as well from both sides?
I definitely feel like we were cheered on more by my straight friends who were editors, who also worked at magazines and newspapers. There were quite a few. I mean, we had tons of support from the LGBTQ community, but there were also plenty of people who felt like we were playing a role of, that only straight people get married. So, if we're doing this, then we're, kind of playing into that heteronormative narrative. And our point was, no, you can get married and be gay and do it your own way. We can take the traditions that we like and throw the rest in the trash. They're not, we're not acting like straight people when we get married,
Right. We just want to follow the progression of what life does, what every couple is entitled to do. We just want to follow that same thing. So I was just curious about that, because I thought, you're right in that time when we were making that shift. And like you guys, Tina and I got married in a state that wasn't legal. At the time we got married in Hawaii, the first time around, it was legal. Then it got changed, and that's a story for something else. But I just was curious about that. So then when you guys decided to get started and get going, what was your first steps? Did you start reaching out to vendors and businesses first, or did you start gathering? How did you guys actually get that Equally Wed off the ground and rolling, and maybe backlash you got from anybody you reached out to?
That's a great question. So the first thing that we did was build it, and Maria, did all the infrastructure for the website, and I recruited all my friends who were writers and got everybody to contribute articles and started, creating the content, creating the editorial calendar, figuring out, what we would cover and how often, and getting people to start sending in submissions. When we launched in March 2010, there were 6 states in the country that offered full marriage equality, and it started with Massachusetts, and by the time that we launched, we had 6, and those states were already having more weddings But there were weddings going on in other states too. And one of our first issue, and we've since moved away from issue and just published daily. But in our first issue, we featured 2 different Atlanta weddings, one at Piedmont Park, and we already had plenty of people to talk to about their weddings and get gorgeous photography. So we built that, and then we moved on to the advertising component. Because I had a full-time job and Maria owned her own graphic design web development firm, we weren't at first relying on Equally Wed as income. We just wanted to create it. Right. And so we reached out to people who we thought would be good advertisers and offered, basement prices in order to have people that we thought were a good fit for our readership to be on there. And then we started building our directory from there as well, because, not only did we want to feature LGBTQ plus weddings and offer, inspiration and advice and have experts come in and talk about, their particular nook in the industry and help our readers plan their weddings, we also wanted to connect readers with LGBTQ plus affirming and inclusive wedding venues and vendors. And so we started building the directory early on in that regard.
And now in 2019, are you shocked about how broad the advertising platform is and how many vendors want to be a part of it? Did you ever think it was going to get that big?
I really thought that it was going to be a natural progression. I remember, some of my friends asked, one of my friends in particular said, I love the name Equally Wed, but it seems so political. And will it be, always that way once you have marriage equality? And for me, still at 2019, it is, political, because the political is personal, and right. We're still fighting for equal treatment in our relationships, in our weddings. Even Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice, just recently said that he thought we should overturn marriage equality. So we are not anywhere near done with this fight for equality.
Well, no, and it's like you guys run a great social media. Their Instagram, Equally Wed, and they also have Equally Wed Pro. And I mean, anybody in the industry, gay or straight, needs to follow just for the beautiful images that they possess and the beautiful weddings that they cover, but also just because they all should be included. But even on social media now, and I know you know it, and I've preached it several times here on the podcast, we often go celebrate on Saturday and say, oh my gosh, look, we're married. We're so excited. And on Sunday, we post it and we share it. And on Monday, instead of getting how come you didn't invite me to the wedding, you get your pink slip saying that you're fired because you're not allowed to be gay in your workplace. So, yes. Equality is a long way from being over. The marriage part, it's working right now, but we do have these Supreme Court justices who would like to change that. So I don't think people realize that the fight still goes on. So that'll bring me to a little bit of this question. Since we're in Pride Month, what is your definition of pride, or what does pride mean to you and Maria?
Well, we are, we live our pride and live our truth every day. So Pride Month is a great time for, honestly, I think Pride is a great month to celebrate who we are, but also it's good time to see our straight allies want to participate in celebrating who we are. And acknowledging the challenges that we've had, and and the fact that we are still having tremendous amount of our community hurt physically and emotionally for who we are. We as a couple, and we as a business, and we in our community, we celebrate Pride every day. Yep. But this is a good time to really shine a spotlight on where we are, how far we've come, and then how far we still have to go to achieve full equality.
Exactly. So have you and Maria too, as active as she is, and I know that she still does some of the websites and everything, but as you guys as a couple and you go out and you talk and you tell people what you're doing now with Equally Wed, are there still people that actually question you, like, oh, I didn't know we need this, or why would we need this now that marriage equality is here? Why is there a need for that? And have you seen, in your point of view, with everything coming in, are you seeing a shift? I mean, if you look at your Instagram and everything, yes, we're seeing some lovely, higher end weddings. We're seeing still has some DIY weddings, but are you seeing the shift in how many submissions you get? Like how many weddings are happening? Are you shocked about how many weddings are happening and the amount of people that actually want to get them published and that are now open and wanting to share the story, which I think is such a shift in my perspective as a photographer. Out of the 10 or 15 recent same-sex weddings that I've done, 4 of those people are still, hey, no disclosure, please don't share this and don't show this. And I respect that. But I was just curious if, since you first started, the gravity or the drastic change, and man, every day there are submissions coming into your website like crazy.
Yes, definitely. I can't say that I'm shocked. I think it's more of just appreciative of how we have grown as a community and as a community of humans, of how humanity has progressed into acting right and allowing, people to feel more comfortable to be able to come out. I'm still very much saddened and brokenhearted when we do have couples who are, can you feature our wedding, but only pretty much the backs of our heads, and
right.
Please don't use our names, or things like that. It does still happen, and people getting fired for having their weddings published. I just love it. I love that that our community has grown in its acceptance. We're right now, I think like 65% of the United States is affirming and believing in marriage equality and in LGBTQ plus relationships in general. And that's huge. We still have a ways to go, and not everybody's going to love us, but at least they're going to know that it's not a choice. And, but we still love who we are.
And I think when it's not an everyday topic anymore, I think, when you go somewhere and it's like, oh, so, hey, Bobby and Tina, so what's it like to be married now? Now, for a while there back in 2014 and 2015, it was everywhere we went. It was what's your point of view? Now it's secondary. We had already been married 20 years plus when this was going on. We're an old married couple, So,
Yeah.
it's like, so then it's like, now it's so far down the list. Just as being a lesbian photographer doesn't even come across my vocabulary. Nobody goes out there and says lesbian photographer, and I don't describe myself as lesbian Bobby. It is so far, it's not who I do, or even in the community. And so,
right.
I really would like your opinion on, and I've been vocal about this myself, but at some point, are you going to be happy that we aren't designating our weddings # same-sex wedding, # LGBTQ+? I understand that by the goodness of social media, that is how couples are finding us, along with people like you guys that are doing a great job showing us allies. But do you think we're going to get to the point where we're just going to really say weddings and we're not going to be designated separately anymore?
Right. Well, okay. So I think that it's becoming more and more accepted and normal or normative for. But I think of same-sex wedding and queer wedding and LGBTQ wedding. I think of them as modifiers, just like farm wedding, rustic wedding, ballroom wedding, church wedding. And for us, because that's how people find us, it's a discoverability thing. And we're certainly not saying this wedding. But, the other thing is that I think it's important to know that if it's an LGBTQ wedding, it is a wedding of 2 people who have really had some major struggles to get to where they are at that altar. People, straight people and gay people alike, and queer people have told me that the weddings they cry at the most are LGBTQ plus weddings, because
Amen.
There's usually some sort of more drama in the family of not being accepted, or
the family not even present.
Right.
And you as a vendor, I do not know how you as a vendor, gay or straight, stands there and watches a couple walk down by themselves because they have to, not because somebody didn't want to walk, because there's nobody to walk them down. That is a parent role. And I don't care what age you are when you walk down that aisle. If you're male or female, you want your father to walk in and out. And the brides that I have that fathers have passed away, I often sit back as a photographer at my same-sex lesbian weddings, and I know why they're crying. Their father
Yeah.
is fully alive, but there's not there to walk down. Or when we get ready to do the toast and the parents welcome, as a vendor in the business of love, as you always say too, to sit here as a vendor, as a human being, and understand, why would somebody want to miss this chapter in their child's life? I don't know how there's not a dry eye in the room.
I know, you're making me cry right now, Bobby.
Well, it's true. And for me,
it's so emotional.
Well, and it's the power of photography. I'm a little bit, skewed in my perspective a little bit, but I'm running a slideshow tomorrow. It's a presentation that I'm doing, and I've got about a minute and a half of same-sex weddings, and I show the DIY backyard, and I show the elaborate. We've got $80,000 worth of florals, and when I look at the photos, as a wedding vendor of 37 years, do I see the florals? Yes. Do I see the decor? Yes. Do I see what I see and what I feel is that because these guys waited 25 years to get married on their 25th anniversary, because it was legal back and now, and waited till 2017 because it was legal, and we're celebrating 25 years, and there's nobody with them but 4 girlfriends, 4 of their best girlfriends, because 25 years later, there's still nobody that says we love you and we're here for you and we support you. And as a photographer, that is the power of photography, whether you're gay or straight, to look back at these photos and remember how loved you are. And most gay weddings look back at their photos and see their chosen family, their friends, but they will always be missing that parental person sitting there. And so that is a pain that comes with my photo for these couples. And that's hard. And it's hard as a gay person to see that, and to come. And so, I know I'm right there with you that's what I think everybody sees. And I think we all have struggles getting to the I do part. We all have struggles getting down the aisle, but the struggles that we in the gay community face are stronger. And I love how you guys bring these topics up, and everybody needs to, make sure that you guys go over it. And Tina will link back to everything we're talking about, but you definitely need to go to equallywed.com because they have some great articles. I mean, they have articles about, engagements and weddings. And so I think I want to ask you at some point, when are we going to go to the Equally Wed family section? Are you going to venture off into talk about families, or are you always just going to stick with weddings?
That's a great question. So when we launched equallyfamily.com probably in the first year in 2010. And we quickly realized we didn't have the bandwidth to build it out the way we wanted to. So equallyfamily.com now forwards over to a family vertical on equallywed.com. And we have articles on, planning out your family with IVF or surrogacy, and different laws that are in place that are or are against LGBTQ plus people, and RFRA, the Religious Freedom, so it's called Religious Freedom Act, that people are using to ban us from adopting children out of certain agencies and things like that. We do cover all of that, and we want to cover it more. So we are growing that. We have at Equally Family on Instagram, but we are we're working on it.
Yeah, and again, because you guys are such great educators and you're bringing this to the forefront. And again, this is, you're for a long time, you were the only resource that I think vendors could go to, let alone couples that want to get married. For a long time, vendors had nowhere to go. Like, well, what do I do? How do I do that? And again, I speak a lot and educate, but I always love learning from people like you. So maybe you can tell our listeners what some of the things that you could tell them to become more gay friendly. We have engaged couples that listen to our podcast, and we also have a lot of wedding pros. So just in general for the listeners, from your point of view and things that you hear, what are some of the biggest steps that wedding pros can take to be more inclusive, and that couples can look for to find a more inclusive vendor?
Right. Okay, great. Well, okay. So some of the ways to immediately make your wedding business more LGBTQ plus inclusive starts with removing all the gender specific language from your website, your social media, and your contracts and the way that you speak to people. So you want to switch out terms like use couple or marrier or celebrant rather than bride and groom. And I don't even recommend talking about 2 brides or 2 grooms, because not all people who are women identify as brides, and not all men identify as grooms, and there are people who don't identify as male or female. They're non-binary, or may use the term third gender, which we get all into that in Equally Wed Pro. It's
Right.
a lot of extra information there, but because of that, just going gender neutral is a great way to be inclusive of everybody from the get-go. You can, and then asking your clients what their pronouns are. And an easy way to do this is start with your own pronouns. Like my name is Kirsten, and I run a website called Equally Wed, and my pronouns are she, her. May I ask what your pronouns are? And it can feel awkward at first if you don't normally do that, but once you get in the rhythm of it, it lets people know that you are accepting of people who may not identify as a gender that you perceive them to be, or people who don't identify with any gender at all. Another thing that I recommend everybody do is put something in your social media bio or website that immediately tells people that you're LGBTQ plus inclusive. You can use LGBTQ friendly, LGBTQ affirming, or something like we welcome all couples. Don't just assume that people are going to know that because you're a nice person, that you automatically serve LGBTQ couples.
Exactly.
And I also strongly recommend that if you are going to include your faith in your social media bio, you need to also include that you're LGBTQ plus inclusive. And unfortunately, a lot of people in our community have been very hurt by people in religious communities, and so we are sensitive when we see that someone is a person of faith and puts that in their social media bio. We unfortunately have to wonder if we'll be accepted, and that's the opposite of what a lot of people of faith want us to feel. But you do have to go that extra mile and just say, we welcome all couples. We work with all couples. We are LGBTQ affirming, things like that.
And that is specifically, we have a good majority of the people that are Southern, and I politely stress this when I talk to them. While I love the fact that they love Jesus and coffee, and I applaud you, I respect you, but as a gay person, I'm not sure I'm going to click through when I see that. So I have plenty of allies down here in the South that have made that simple change. Well, Bobby, what do you use? I use open to all. And they've been amazed, and they've told me by simply putting that simple thing. Again, we'll talk about it a little bit. I don't think you need to have a big rainbow flag going across everything. You can do things to let people know. And do I think, and maybe that's a good question for you, do you think there's a degree of LGBTQ ally? People that say, and maybe you've heard, yes, I'm accepting, but then never take a gay wedding. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I think there are degrees of allyship and walking the walk and talking the talk. I think, in terms of there are tons of stories out right now about vendors and venues who their managers or whoever's running it are saying, well, of course we have gay friends, but we are not going to participate in their weddings. That's not an ally at all. That's not doing anything for the progression of equality for all couples or all love. And I would cringe if somebody in that regard called themselves an ally, but they may think of themselves that way. And that's a, conversation I'd welcome to have with them.
Well, I think that's part of our education. Sometimes we're forgetting about educating. Hey, you know what? And again, you and I are both educators, so we hear this. How can I better serve? How can I better do? And a lot of it is simple. Just tell us. Tell the gay community that you're here.
Right.
And you may not have photos, and I understand that. And I think you'll agree with me that if you want to do a style shoot, and I encourage you all, if you would like to do a style shoot, but please, 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 reach out for same-sex couples to be in the style shoot. Please don't have somebody playing us.
Yes.
And I see that too. I get asked. I have vendors that call and ask me, Bobby, can I use some of your photos on my website? I don't even know who you are. Who are you? And they're like, well, you have this wonderful gay couple on your website, on your Instagram. Could we use them? And I've had mine stolen. And I bet if you ask a lot of photographers, we've had our photos stolen. If somebody has seen them somewhere else. That's not the way to do it either. It's like anything
No.
else. In this industry, style shoots have been a way that we, basically break our teeth on it or get into the industry by doing a style shoot. I am not opposed to that, but go get a bunch of gay vendors and let it be gay vendor strong, get same-sex couples, and then also include, African Americans, do a mixed race, because I think you will agree with me that while we're talking about our community, inclusion and diversity means don't be afraid to take that Indian wedding, be accepting to that Jewish wedding. We need to accept everybody and walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yes.
So here in the South, mixed race still is a problem. As a member of the gay community like yourself, I sometimes have to say, oh, by the way, my wife's going to be calling you to have a problem with that, just because that's the age that I am, and I've been doing it so long, it's habit. But I still get, in 2019, 2 weeks ago, hi, I really love your website. I see that you have African American couples. I'm in a mixed race. Will you talk to me? We are in 2019, Kirsten. 2019.
Yeah,
and so I think we as the community also have to be leaders in accepting and diversity for everybody, that in the industry, everybody needs to be represented. Yeah. They need to see themselves,
Absolutely. Yeah. You're completely on the mark with that. And I think we are growing, in this industry of people who are trying to branch out, it's not just skinny white people, straight skinny white people who get married. There are people of all sizes and all colors and all abilities who are getting married and want their weddings represented on the Instagram feeds and in the different publications. And if you serve all couples, make sure you put all couples on your site too, that You're not just, trying to find the one specific type of client. Because if we don't see ourselves on websites, then we're going to assume that you, one, have never done a same-sex wedding or a Black wedding or a Latino wedding, and that you may not know how. And also that you may not want our business, and that it's scary to reach out to people that you feel like might crush your heart on about the very day that's supposed to be one of the most special moments of your entire life.
And you have advertising marketing material says that you do this every weekend. I just can't see myself. And so I always want to remind people, like you said, it isn't because maybe no African-American couple has ever reached out to me. Maybe no Latino companies called me. Could it be because they don't see themselves on my website? Could be. But maybe I'm also not in a market, and that's acceptable. But also as a gay wedding vendor, if I can't figure out if you're safe, I don't know how couples can figure out if you're safe.
Exactly.
I have to come out every time I talk to you as a vendor. Couples are going to feel that way too, because they I love that allies and fellow vendors want to ask the questions. And I think we both can agree that this is new territory still, even in 2019. It's not that old. We're all going to make mistakes. I have been in, I think, every single one of my same-sex weddings, the entertainment or band has said Mr. and Mrs. Every single one. And the look on their face is horrible, but it's habit. You do, and they're not even thinking. They don't even know if they welcome Mr. Steve and Susie. They just said, "Ladies and gentlemen," with their head down, Mr. and Mrs. for the fit. It's on autopilot.
Right.
And I think couples understand those mistakes. But do you hear from couples what they would like vendors not to do versus what they would like vendors to do when they're reaching out?
Right. Yes. So in the last few years, we've started asking all our real wedding submissions to share their experiences of what worked and what didn't work, and what do you wish couple vendors would do and not do. And by and large, people are saying that they would like vendors and venues to stop using heteronormative terms as if that is the norm for, whether it's, a bride and groom or bridesmaids or groomsmen. It's not necessarily the case with LGBTQ plus couples, and it's better to not assume, but find out what each couple wants and then go with that. It may be that they do use the term bridesmaid and they do consider themselves two brides, but you need to ask rather than just assume.
And even my heterosexual weddings, my last two, I've had the best man, but he's like, "Hey, Bobby, in my interview process, I'm not going to have a best man. I'm having my best gal. And I think Tina can, I mean, if I'm almost sure, my last 2 or 3, I've had mix. I've had some guys on the girl side and some girls on the guy side. So our heterosexual couples, and you know why? They're respecting their friends. This is my gay best friend. He is going to be my bride man, you know? And I love when they come up with, and Bobby, they do their own hashtags, you know, this is my bridesman. Well, you know what? Then I'll hashtag your wedding bridesman. You know, I'm learning just as much as everybody else, but enlightening that it is that our heterosexual couples are respecting their friends. And I think that's the new generation. You know, I am 55 years old, you know, and I talk about marriage equality and thrilling for my generation, but I was more happy for the generation coming up. But I just don't think it's going to be a big deal to them that they want to have an African-American gay guy standing on the girl's side. It doesn't matter to them. And so we're seeing all these things and how things are happening. And probably like you, I mean, I've never called it a bridal party. I've never got that term. It's a wedding party, but bridal suite is off-putting. And you and I can talk a little bit about it. Why do you find that when you were looking to get married, did you find all those things offensive, not in a mean way, but it bothered you that you were like, why is it all called bridal, or why is it all called this? Is that one of the, I know that's why you started, but did you really find that it bugged you back in 28 and 29?
Right. Well, so I think for us, and I don't know if it's because I'm Southern or, you know, just used to discrimination, used to not seeing things like carved out where we felt included. It was, I wouldn't say it was offensive as much as it just was shocking. You know, I had a beautiful room to get married in, but my wife or my wife-to-be had to go get married in a literal closet, you know. We're coming out of the closet and then she's getting put back in a closet, you know, and we are, you know, at the time we didn't have, you know, the name Equally Wed yet, but here we are getting equally wed, and one of us has to go in this smaller area. And I guess if I were marrying a man, that's where they would have put the guy too. And I think that in terms of LGBTQ plus equality, but also bringing the groom up, the straight groom in heterosexual weddings is changing too, that people are recognizing that it's not just the bride's day. It's the couple's day, and we should all be treated equally. You know that, and oftentimes the couples are making these decisions together. It's no longer the stereotype of you know, some just bridezilla, you know, doing everything with their mother and their partners, whoever they are getting left out of it. It's not the way it's going these days.
No, and they just show up and go, what am I doing? No. And more my couples are the ones that are paying for everything and pretty much are telling their parents to sit down and shut up and enjoy the meal. You know, and I mean, I've seen that happen recently where it's been like, hey, don't listen to my mom, whatever she says. And I have to go, well, you know what? It's true. She didn't write me the check this time, you know? So, you know, it's kind of like, as a vendor, you're like, well, they wrote the check, you know. Are there some new traditions that you're seeing? You know, we're celebrating. I think we're on a great verge. I love that we have weddings. I love that every 4th, 5th wedding of mine, at least once a month, I'm having a same-sex wedding. And I, in my career, I've always had more same-sex weddings than I have had straight weddings anyway. But what are some trends that you are seeing, especially coming to publication, that you're really enjoying and embracing the gay community and our community celebrating in different ways?
I think one of the biggest trends or traditions in our weddings that we're not seeing at all in straight weddings are the double proposals. Yep. At least 50% of our couples are proposing to each other rather than just the one proposing to the other, and that's been just beautiful because it's so much goes into in terms of like the psychology of not one person doesn't have the control and the other just has to wait. But also they're both saying, I choose you, and will, you know, and do you choose me too? And they're both getting that moment. And sometimes it's real sweet that we have had couples plan this big proposal and then their partner also is planning a big proposal for the very same day, the very same trip. And it's just so sweet because, you know, then they're obviously on the same page and they're planning on spending the rest of their lives together. And it's really beautiful and sweet. And then in other ways, couples are continuing to find new ways to celebrate marriage equality or LGBTQ equality and pride throughout their wedding, whether it's having readings about different things. Like one of the biggest ones now is with Justice Anthony Kennedy, what he wrote in terms of on June 26, 2015, when we got marriage equality as a federal right. No union is more profound than marriage, for it embodies the highest ideals of love, fidelity, devotion, sacrifice. That one, that's being read a lot. And then the readings from the Massachusetts ruling for marriage equality in that state is really popular as well. And as well as shifting registries to no longer just saying, yep, I would love a new blender, but rather I would love it if you give, a donation to the HRC or GLAAD or Lambda Legal or the Transgender Center for Equality. Things like that is something that we're seeing a lot of.
And I agree. I mean, I love when the justice passed away, that section of what he is known for played such a role in so many ways that people utilize, I'm going to mess that word up really bad, paid tribute to him. And I know we had, I probably would say half my couples that year used that either in their programs, in part of their readings, like you said, and it's for us, it is very, very moving. Do you go to a lot of weddings? Do you, Maria, get invited as guests, straight or same sex?
We really only go to weddings of our friends, or family that we already know. We've been invited to a few reader weddings, but they're never like in our city, so it's not feasible or makes sense to go. But I would say that we go to an average amount of weddings, nothing bizarre, or not bizarre. That's an unfair word, but we don't. A lot of people in our circle are already married, and then we have just that established thing. Although a lot of people in our friend circle are getting divorced, so maybe there will be a new round of weddings and we'll get to go celebrate them again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I always laugh because people always say to me, "You're not in the repeat business." I'm like, well, this year alone, I've got 3 couples that got married a few years ago, and straight couples, let that be known, and have called me up and said, "Hey, you probably realize." I'm like, "Yeah, I could have told you on the day you were getting married. What are you doing?" I knew on the engagement session, I came home and told Tina, well, these people, get ready to have that date open for availability because they're not going to make it to that date. And then lo and behold, this happens. But yeah, she called this year and said, "Hey, you know what? Do you think you can get my entire vendor team back together?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can make a call." She goes, "You guys were the best part of my day, and I like to have you all back again." So it works, and I love that portion of it. I think one of the other things that's very moving to me too, and I love your intake on that, or your input on that, is a lot of our LGBTQ plus community come to getting married with children, bringing children in from another, marriage or another ceremony. And I love how we all just include them. I know in heterosexual where they do too, but again, it's just one of those most amazing things when I see, 2 women walking the child of the other spouse to be down the aisle, and it is just so moving. And I think as we move forward, we're going to see more and more, blended couples. I mean, do you kind of feel that or see that? And I hate to use the word trends like you do, but that's a cliche term, but traditions and trends to me it's industry terms. So it's like, is that some things that you're seeing, especially when you see some submissions, people talking about blending the families?
Definitely. And I think, I actually am seeing there a trend that it's moving away from that. And I think it's because people are, in the LGBTQ plus community, are realizing their truth about, their sexuality or their gender identity earlier in life, and they're finding more support from friends and family. And so they're able to go out and find the partner who they really love rather than who society thinks they should love. And so we're ever since the passage of marriage equality, we're having more and more younger weddings being submitted. And by younger, I just mean before 30.
Yes.
And so there's less of what I was seeing when I was growing up, which is And I still see it, today, but, two women getting married, but one of them has children from a marriage to a man because she didn't, either didn't realize she was a lesbian or didn't feel like she could honor that part of her. And then, after she realized, hey, I don't think I can continue to be married to this man. She has children, and then goes off to find the woman of her dreams. That is happening less with the advent of marriage equality and society's acceptance of LGBTQ plus relationships as a whole. So we're seeing that in wedding submissions less, but it's not to say that we aren't seeing children being involved. It just happens to be less, or it's people who had children with a same-sex partner and then they're divorced and then finding another same-sex partner to marry. Exactly. We're seeing a lot of that too. But also we still are featuring, and I love them probably the best. We are still featuring weddings of 70-year-olds and 50-year-olds, yep. Who waited a long time to get marriage equality passed before they had a wedding. And not everybody did that. I mean, my wife and I didn't do that, but a lot of people did. And I find that the older the couple is, the more that they waited, until it was going to be legal everywhere, and didn't expect to see it in their lifetime, but yet it came.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a testament to that. I never ever thought I would be married, and when Tina said, hey, I'd like to be married, I was one of those like, well, why? It's not legal. What's going to change, and this is long before, and, I joke on my bio when I'm out talking, it says I have 3 wedding dates and I forget all of them sometimes, just ask Tina, and people look at me like, how many, you can't say that, but I mean, it is, but it goes back to, there are so many similarities in the heterosexual wedding world as it is in our community's weddings. The wedding, you walk down the aisle and say, I do. And it's about the journey that you got there. And whether you have a celebration or you follow traditions, it's all still moving, and we all have the right to marry the person that we want to marry, good, bad, or ugly. People agree or disagree. It's funny that I don't think we say, and I in all the weddings we participate in, and Tina's an officiant, and she never says, is there anybody here that disagrees with this? I mean, it's like, we don't do that. It's like, yes, everybody here. No, we don't do that. So I always think it's funny that is part of their ritual. That was part of their rituals, that was actually part of the passages. And I still laugh about that. We got a couple of questions from some guests, some listeners that came in, and I think it's a good segue to dive in, because I think I want to get you over to your inclusion course, and I think a couple of these questions will lead you into explaining. It's, hey, I really appreciate everything that you do at Equally Wed. I am not a paid vendor at this time, but I follow you greatly. This is from Joyce, and she is from, this is rural Georgia. Is there a way for me to submit my weddings if I don't do fancy weddings? Am I able to submit to Equally Wed that may help promote my business? So maybe you can talk a little bit about your submission process.
Sure. Hi, Joyce. Thank you for your great question. So one, I know you didn't directly ask this, but I do want to be clear. You do not have to be an advertiser of Equally Wed to submit your weddings or your engagements or any of your photography or special events. And what we look for in our submissions, we have equallywed.com/submissions is where you would go to get started. And we accept submissions through 2 Bright Lights, and we also accept submissions through our own site. And what we're looking for are gorgeous photos that tell a story. So the wedding itself does not have to cost a lot. The details, the flowers, it could be, a $2,000 backyard wedding. But the photos that are telling the story from the people, the couple getting ready to if first look, if they're doing it beforehand, or the first look on the aisle, to, the rings and the decor, and all of it being a cohesive story about these 2 people who fell in love and this day that they are using to celebrate who they are and their commitment going forward. That's what we're looking for. And, I can't stress enough that the gorgeous photography, it really helps to visually tell the story. and inspire more couples who are coming to see, what their wedding could look like. And not just couples. We also have a lot of family members who come to Equally Wed to, to get inspiration, but also to get some affirmation that their daughter or son or non-binary child is not some odd outlier who's planning a marriage with someone of the same gender. They come for a variety of reasons when they come to Equally Wed, but we want to inspire people with that story, and that's the heart of it.
I think that's beautiful that parents are actually going there as opposed to going to Pinterest. They're actually going to these processes. I want to jump on and add to Joyce. She did not mention this, but Kirsten, maybe you can say, do you have to be the photographer to send these in, or can a wedding planner send in submissions to you? You just have to have permission from the photographer, correct?
Right. Yes. Yes. So we primarily get submissions from 3 different places: wedding planners, wedding photographers, or the couple themselves. And if you are not the part of the couple, make sure you get permission from them. And if there is a wedding planner involved, and that wedding planner might be the one who has decided what publication they want to submit the wedding to. We often, most of the wedding publications, including us, have an exclusivity policy where we don't want the wedding that we're featuring to be anywhere else for 6 months or a year, because we don't want our Instagram feed to look like another person's Instagram feed or another company's. And so make sure that everybody's on the same page, the planner, the officiant, the photographer, and the couple, that they want to be featured. First of all, some couples are very private about their lives and could get fired. They might be school teachers. They may be clergy in a church, and they may not want their wedding featured anywhere. So definitely get their okay.
And that's incredibly more important, everybody. I'll say this again, and you hear me say it a lot. It's more important to be respectful and protect your couples than to get your wedding published and promote your own work. So it's be respectful. We can't ask to be respected if we're not going to respect back. So, that's the key. Point. Right. David is from Alabama, and he said, could you ask if there is a ratio that Equally Wed sees? I am an out gay photographer in Alabama. If I show too many wedding photos of same sex, I'm defeating myself in the heterosexual world. Is there a mix that Equally Wed thinks is appropriate to share? I'm guessing he's wondering versus how many same-sex photos versus straight photos. So I'll let you answer that one.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I think that it really depends on your target audience, your target, customer. I don't think there can ever be too many same-sex weddings, but, and I think that, and this people might not agree with this, but I think straight people have had their day in the sun. So, I don't think we need to worry about that you're not showing enough straight people. But for any business person, if you show a large portion of one particular thing, you might get pigeonholed. I don't know if that's a bad thing. I don't know if there's enough same-sex couples in your area to support your business. And so there may be a reason to have a higher balance of heterosexual people in your photography, if you are worried that you might not get booked as much for straight weddings. But it depends also, on the feedback that you're getting. Are you getting the feedback, or does it just feel like, are you worried that it feels this way?
Right. And he may totally feel that way, that he's seeing something that's not really happening. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but I think, inclusivity, eventually people will say that it should go both ways, but right now I think it's okay if you're a little too.
Yeah. And again, you got to fill out your market. So Anne is a wedding planner in Louisiana, and perfect timing for the question. I recently saw that Equally Pro is offering certification. Is this something that as a wedding planner would benefit me to help show my same-sex couples, which I currently do not have any weddings of same sex, but I would love to be a same-sex wedding planner. Is the certification program something for me?
It is. Okay, so equallywedpro.com is our newest program for from the creators of Equally Wed, which is myself and my wife Maria. We have a team under us that works on Equally Wed, but we decided to launch Equally Wed Pro, which is an online certification course to becoming LGBTQ plus inclusive in your business. And it is for any wedding or event professional who wants to understand more about the LGBTQ plus community, how to authentically serve them, and how to grow your business in the process. Definitely wedding planners, photographers, florists, limousine drivers, anyone who's interested in making sure that they are a safe and welcoming space for LGBTQ plus couples. The course, we really we welcome everybody from the event industry as a whole. Most of it is in relation to weddings and engagements and honeymoons, but it can be applied to any special event that you're trying to market to the LGBTQ plus community, or that you're just trying to market to everybody, and everybody includes the LGBTQ plus community. And how can you do that being authentic and celebratory?
And it is a wonderful course. I encourage everybody to go over and take a look at it. Like she said, I think it is just it will help you understand. I know, and I'm sure you guys get asked a lot, one of the first questions I get is, can you explain all the initials and what all they're for? And I'm going to be real honest here, as a gay wedding vendor, especially in the South, we are not going to see every single letter that comes across our community. We're not going to see and it's growing. I've had several transgender weddings down here, but I think it depends on your market. And if you guys go to this course, you're getting it taught from two people who started it for a reason. And so they're coming at it because they didn't see it when they were getting married. So even though they're, quote, in the wedding industry now, and they're part of our wedding industry, and we seek them for education, you're all going to pick up some information that you may think you know, but you really don't know. And it will enlighten you and make you have an open conversation, so that when gay couples start reaching out to you, you'll kind of have a heads up, and you'll be able to say, hey, I know exactly what you're talking about. And then your contact form's not going to say bride and groom, and you're going to make these changes. So I highly, highly encourage everybody to jump over to Equally Wed and Equally Wed Pro, follow both their platforms, and you're going to just learn a lot. So another question that kind of comes up with education, it's from Susan, and Susan says, I am a happily married straight woman living in Alabama again, but I'm a florist, and I would really, really love to participate in same-sex weddings. Is there suggestions on how, as a florist, I can let people know that I am a true ally?
Yes, absolutely, Susan. And I really do. I think that the course equallywedpro.com, I think it could really help you, Susan, and anyone else who is really, interested in understanding our community better, but also interested in how to market to them. Definitely starting with removing the gendered language from all of your marketing and your contracts, et cetera. And adding that you are open to all, as Bobby said, or LGBTQ plus affirming, to your social media. When you graduate from our certification course, you are given, you're earning your CIP credentials, which is your Certified Inclusive Professional credential. So you can automatically add that to your signature. You get a badge for your site. We're mailing certificates out to our graduates. But then you're also going to just feel more confident about how to speak with LGBTQ plus people. You're going to learn the difference between non-binary and gender non-conforming and genderqueer and gender fluid and pansexual and bisexual and asexual and agender and all of the people in our community. It's a rich and diverse community. And we've done an intense amount of research, not just, through our own knowledge belonging to the community and being in the wedding industry, but I went out and interviewed people who have their doctorates in gender studies or genderqueer studies to really make sure that I was presenting this information as accurately as possible. And I grew, in my understanding while creating this course, because there's a lot, and I really wanted to make sure that this is a thorough and accurate explanation of what our community is made up of, and the things that we need from our allies, and as well as going over to things that, I hear from well-meaning wedding professionals who want to work with LGBTQ plus couples, but are sometimes inadvertently putting their foot in their mouth.
Right.
So, my thing is, that I say is that we're here for people whose hearts are in the right place. They just they don't know quite how to get it out there. And that's what we're here for.
And I'll say that, and I think that you guys will agree, we're all learning here. I mean, again,
yes.
you're hearing from two people in this interview having a conversation that are both part of the gay community, and we are still learning different things. The new generation is bringing new things for us, but the new generation in weddings across the board, guys, are bringing new things to us every day. I challenge any wedding planner to pick up the phone and know exactly the next 15 things any couple is going to ask them. It's going to change. It changes every day in the industry. And by being an ally and working together for diversity and acceptance across the board, man, we are lifting the wedding industry together, and we're building it together. And I don't want people to just become allies because they think it's a new paycheck or it's a new revenue stream, because yes, there can be very expensive same-sex weddings, but there can be a lot of DIYs that are more moving and more meaningful. And you have to be willing to open yourself up to that. And I think that we're all going to make mistakes, everybody, and it's new history and it's new terms. And I think gay couples are compassionate about it as long as you're not in our face calling us lesbian and gay without even asking us, or assuming that as two women, we're both going to wear dresses, and you don't start your questions off with that. And I think through the course that you guys offer, those are just some ways that it's logical, but it's not logical to somebody who doesn't live in our community, and vice versa for things that I don't know why we do some of the things we do in heterosexual. That doesn't make any sense to me, but it's part of what I do every weekend, and I've learned to do that. So, I think that's wonderful. Is there I want to talk business a little bit. Is there apps that you guys have found in running both the websites and the social media? Is there apps? I always try to ask our guests. It's always a technical question. What apps is it that just make your life so much easier as a creative entrepreneur?
Well, I think that if you are not running your business with social media,
yep,
now you're behind. And unfortunately, we have to be present on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And it can be annoying. We love it, but it also is, we're tied to it. And one thing that I love for Equally Wed is that we use Later. It's an app for scheduling out your Instagram posts, and you can do everything from your hashtags to the scheduling the images, but tagging all the people that you want to tag and putting in your hashtags weeks in advance. And so that's an incredible app for me. We used to use Hootsuite, and they're great, but Later was more cost effective. We use Tailwind for our Pinterest scheduling, which is great. And then I just downloaded something through the Chrome extension so that I can start direct messaging people from Instagram from my computer, because I just turned 41. Yeah, I'm 41, and I don't want to sit there and type messages on my little phone. I mean, God bless the millennials who do want to do that, but I do not. And we have an assistant editor that handles most of our social media now. But it's since I've been, pivoting over to education more. But we are very reliant on those apps, and trying to think of anything else specific that has been instrumental.
It comes to Tom. Tom, the reason I asked that question too is Tom says, can you give me some advice on when I'm on social media? Do you think that social media, Instagram, is the best platform for us in the LGBT community to get our point of views across? And also, do you think it's advisable, from your take on what you see in submissions, that as an LGBTQ community person, I do a post with a wonderful wedding, and then I can also do a post that may be my political standpoint?
Yes. I think that the political is the personal, and I think that we shouldn't shy away from it. Telling people what we're facing as part of the human race, and so you are going to attract what you put out. So if you are interested in having customers or clientele who are politically aware, then that's going to be what you attract, and or at the very least, I call them the lurkers, people who don't even they follow you and they don't comment, and they don't like anything, but they are learning from you. And so I think that the more people that are out there and spreading the word about the things that we're still facing as an LGBTQ plus community, I think it's vital. And I also think that it's good for your customer to get to know you from, behind the lens or behind, the floral bouquet, and to understand it. And I'm sure Bobby can speak to this, even better as being a vendor in terms of that balance of how much is too much, because you want to make sure, I would think, that you're hiring somebody who is also interested in the weddings, and not solely interested in talking about themselves. And that's why I like the Friday introductions hashtag on Instagram, so that the most of the time you're posting about your work, and then on Fridays it's like, hey, here's a little bit about me from behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely. And I can tell you that from a vendor standpoint, Tina runs my office and does all my admin and everything. Very seldom does Tina go to a wedding, except when she officiates. And we got her officiating a good 7 or 8 years ago, for the simple fact of we felt in our community what we were being asked for is there was not a lot of same-sex officiants. And let's face it, that is one category that I think really does benefit from somebody being gay. I know that they can speak from the heart, and I think it's more meaningful. And a lot of the gays, we have our own friends that we want to just ordain, but we've been very blessed that Tina and I get to go out. We get asked to go out together. And that is one of the things that people write in the reviews. It's like, oh my gosh, Bobby and Tina are great. They're open, they're loving, and we even have reviews that says, if I would have known gay people were so nice, like Bobby and Tina, we would have, and she wasn't even at the wedding. I mean, all she's done is answer their email or answer their question, but we're definitely seen as we're that couple that just takes care of it. But they'll come up at a wedding and somebody will say, oh, so, is Tina here? And the couple will say, oh no, Tina just does the front end. And you're like, okay, I'm glad you know that. But so it is that balance. But I think you do have to stand up and be vocal. And that's why I think that I talk a little bit about, it's not just about the couples. It's about being a gay vendor. It's still hard to be a gay vendor, and we need to be accepted by the same peers that we call our vendor family every single weekend. I mean, we're working together as a team, and it's much easier to work if I'm not worried that you're trashing me behind my back or calling me a slur when I walk away. Or I'm not that pretty young blonde Christian girl. I'm the old fat lesbian, and that's how it is. I carry a camera, and there's no doubt. I mean, as poster child. I'm the LPGA poster child, and so I don't hide it or do anything. But I just think that across the board in the industry, we have to start respecting everybody. And if we're going to want to be inclusive, we need to also include ourselves as wedding vendors and everything like that. So, but that's why that question with Tom came up, because I thought to myself, that's kind of going why social media is where we need to be and how we need to do it. So, wrapping up here, where do you guys see yourself in the next 3 years? Are you going to write another book? Are you going to come out with another series of anything? What's your plans, and where do you see Equally Wed going in the next 3 years?
I think that we will continue to grow the certification course. We're being invited to speak in other countries about LGBTQ plus inclusivity, and so that's exciting for us in terms of education and growth, and then also getting to know people just around the world, because we're an international publication and we really think of ourselves as just part of the community. We want to, we're very, very close to deciding this, but I will say that we're most likely going to be in print by next year.
Wow,
and
that's great.
we're excited. While other magazines are folding, I still think it's just incredibly important for couples like us to be able to see ourselves on the shelves,
Right.
no matter, the difficulties that it, might take to get there. It's important. And it's also, coming from a print background, it's been a dream of mine for a long time.
Right.
And so with 10 years coming up for Equally Wed, it's important that we can do this, and because we can, I think we should,
Exactly.
and that's it. We'll just continue to do what we're doing and celebrate, our couples and the vendors who, are inclusive. It's kind of our life's work. It's something that we're passionate about.
And it's evident because you're just the way that you've grown, since you guys started. And again, nobody was doing it. And you were out there as careful and respectful, but forceful, talking about feminists, talking about being queer. I mean, people weren't doing this. I mean, and so when you guys stepped out to do it, and you did it in a way where you didn't shy away. I mean, you put your faces out there so people could actually see you, that you were individuals, that you were legitly who you were. And, you've sat so quiet, but yet you've been such a big wave. And when I mean quiet, I mean out of respect, that you're not throwing it down people's throat. You're not inundating myself as a vendor every single day with, please advertise, please advertise, please advertise. I don't get that every day from you guys. And that is, again, quiet, but making the big noise. So maybe we can end up here by, maybe you can just tell vendors why be value to participate in your advertising program, and some of the ways that you have seen and heard vendors say that being part of the Equally Wed family has improved their business and helped them grow as well.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me to speak on that. We are sometimes we feel like a nonprofit because we are mission driven. We are not, though, and we love for advertisers to come in and support our editorial mission and find ways to work with us to connect with our readership. We are the largest trafficked, most volume wedding website in the world dedicated exclusively to LGBTQ plus couples. So when you're coming to us and advertising with us, you are getting the largest concentrated pool of LGBTQ plus couples who are looking to connect with inclusive vendors and venues. I think that one of the best things that we've heard from vendors over and over is how they found vendors. How couples reached out to them because they found them on Equally Wed, and they were excited because not only did they just choose a badge that said LGBT friendly or click a box. This is something that wedding vendors who feel strongly and passionately about supporting queer-owned media and also working with LGBTQ plus couples have decided to invest in, and then in turn, our readers find them and feel a kinship and a loyalty to them. It's the same as when we, Bobby, like if we go to Pride and we see vendors who actually set up a tent, they're not just out there waving a flag, and from their business, they came to our community, they came to our turf to make sure that they connected with us. And that's the same way that our readers feel about our advertisers.
And is it nationwide, or is it out of the country? If somebody wants to advertise, and let's just say since we had a couple of these wonderful listeners from Alabama, they want to go on there. Can people specifically go to Alabama and find their names that they would like to advertise?
Yep, absolutely. So it's a geographic designation that you can search through locations from. We have people from Australia to Mexico to Alabama to Mississippi, New York and Texas, California, everywhere. 70% of our readers are in the United States.
And that way, vendors, if somebody's getting married in one of these destination markets and, they're having a lovely LGBTQ wedding and they're looking for allies, they can go here to Equally Wed and they can click on that state where they're having the wedding. And guess what? They're going to find you. And then all the things that you have learned from this inclusion course, along with everything else that you're just doing right to be an ally, or if you're just happen to be a gay vendor like me and you want to do more and you want to serve more in our community, this would be a wonderful place to invest some advertising dollars. And remember, you're investing back into another gay business. And I can't stress that enough. So last thing is just remind everybody where they can find everything out about you guys. And then I will let you go on your merry way.
Oh, sure. You can start your search for everything at equallywed.com. But you can also find our course at equallywedpro.com. And I did also want to tell you, I didn't think to mention it, Bobby, but everybody who graduates from our course gets a free listing on our site.
There you
go.
So
it's a win-win. And really, I mean, it's selfish on our part. We're just trying to have more educated LGBTQ plus inclusive vendors to serve our readers, and our community in general. We're trying to widen the pool. We want everybody to be educated, but we're trying to make sure that our community has a bigger pool to choose from.
Well, and you're doing it too from the same reason. You started this because there is a need. Vendors were asking, how can I better serve? I mean, again, all gay people know all gay people not, but all gay vendors know all gay vendors not. But if you want to know something about, you're going to go to your gay vendor and you're going to say, hey, how can I do more same-sex weddings? Boom. That's why you created a course, because it is a need and a want. And it's thankfully we've reached a point in the industry where more and more vendors want to include us in our stories and help us tell them. And this is a perfect way to do it. So I applaud you greatly for the course. And, like I said, years ago, I can only imagine back in 2008-9, if you would have thought to yourself or told yourself, in a few short years, we'll be doing a course about acceptance. Whether you believe that or put that on your vision board, I think somewhere deep down in your heart, you have to be very proud of yourself for all the things that you're doing for the community. So you're absolutely fabulous. So listeners, that's where we can find her. Guys know on the Be Fabbo podcast, I share lots of things from their sites, and I not too proud to say that when I make presentations at the Not Education, quite often one of your slides comes up and it's totally credit to you. I always send people your way if I can't answer something deeply, and I have been supporting the inclusion course since you guys came out with it and chatting about it. So Kirsten, I thank you so much for your time. Kudos to you, Maria, for doing wonderful things for our community and just living a wonderful life and showing us that we're all equal and we're all important and that we all deserve to have our stories told. So listeners, you wanted to hear from her. Hopefully you got some information there. Tina will have all the show notes, all the things we talked about. And you guys follow these guys along and definitely sign up for this course. So thank you so much, Kirsten. Have a fabulous weekend, everybody. Anything else you want to add before we go?
Oh, just thank you so much for having me. I really am honored, and I really appreciate it, and I applaud what you're doing. We're so lucky to have you in our community, Bobby.
Well, you're the love champions. They're love champions, and I love it, and I support it as well. And a rumor has it I've been nominated, so I think I think we must all be doing something right if that all comes to fruition. So I appreciate everybody who applauds me as a love champion, and I applaud you as a love champion. All right, everybody, go have a fabulous weekend. Remember, what you do as a wedding professional is important and it matters. Go out, show up, be the best you can be. And remember, show diversity, show acceptance, and every single day be kind. Everybody be Fabbo. Thanks so much. See you next week.
Thanks for joining us. We hope these conversations will take you into your wedding weekend with a little more confidence, proud of what you do, and how you serve your clients. Maybe you even picked up a business tip or two. Till next time, be Fabbo.